This is Amanda, and you are listening to the Pseudo Stereo local music feature here on radioutd.com. Today, we've got a very local, very local artist with us, Professor Fuzz 63.
Hi, how are you?
Could you, we just alluded to it, but you are actually a professor here at UTD.
This is true.
What do you teach?
I teach Chinese studies and history. So I'm in the School of Arts and Humanities.
Okay. And how long have you been teaching here for?
I am finishing up my 15th year on campus. I started here in the fall of 2007, and 15 years once we hit the end of this term.
Wow.
Which is mercifully just around the corner.
Could you tell us a bit about your band?
We're hard to describe. I think the short phrase is we're lo-fi rock, but then there's this whole other lo-fi beats, chill beats to study thing that sounds nothing like us, because we are lo-fi in the sense that it's somewhat noisy, it's not polished. We're lo-fi in a Velvet Underground or Nuggets garage rock sense more than the way that term is currently being deployed as a genre. So we're kind of trying to expand by adding more hyphens. And so now we have to say we're a fuzzed out, lo-fi, post-punk, garage rock organ trio to help zero in and not make people think that they can pop us on the headphones and chill out and study, because I think we're going to bug people if they're expecting that lo-fi and they're getting our lo-fi.
That might not be the study session material they were hoping to.
No, we're gonna stick an earworm in their head, and they're gonna be walking around singing owls or nudist Buddhist or something instead of memorizing differential equations or dates of important battles in European history.
Yeah, the way I guess that's why it's called Professor Fuzz, because of that fuzzy kind of texture to the music, so to say.
Yeah, to some extent. The nickname Professor Fuzz was given to me 20-odd years ago when I first started my career as a professor at another university in another state, both which shall remain nameless to protect the guilty parties. I was into fuzz pedals, and I had some friends that we were, going to open mics and talking gear and stuff with, and I was always showing up with a new fuzz pedal, and so they started calling me Professor Fuzz. And then when this band came together, we started working on this about 2013. Played our first show in 2014 and have been going ever since. I think we're about to hit our 250th show this coming weekend.
Oh, wow.
Over that period of time. And that's excluding 2 long overseas stints where I went to do my professor job. So taking time off from the band to go overseas and do things. But at any rate, when I started this band, we figured that I had an online presence as Professor Fuzz in various, music-oriented guitar and gear forums and music fan forums and things of that nature. So we wanted to keep that as part of the name, because that was, by this point, that was part of an alternate identity. And in the 63, coming out of a garage rock tradition and like a British invasion tradition, you had bands like, the Dave Clark Five, or you had these jazz, so-and-so's trio or somebody's quintet. I liked the idea of doing that. And we wanted to be, a sextet, but there were only 3 of us, so we combined the 2 and we put the 6 and the 3 together. And we sort of joke that gives us room to expand. We're currently a trio, but we can add 60 more band members without having to change the name. I think if
orchestra edition.
If the Dave Clark Five had added another player, they would have had to change the name to the Dave Clark Six, and all the merch and everything would be worthless at that point. So we're thinking big. We can add orchestra, we can add horns, we can add dancers, fire jugglers. I don't know. The possibilities are kind of unlimited with what we're doing.
Seems you got an animator though, kind of. adjacent.
We do have an adjacent animator. He is adjacent as far as physically, he's in Seattle. A guy named Ryan J. Gill, and he has a web-based cartoon called The Other Ass that's a music-oriented thing. And he does some animation as well. We brought him to our attention. I'd been following the cartoon for a long time, and he posted a link on social media early in the lockdown phase of spring of 2020.
Okay.
And there was a video called Quarantanamo Bay, Who's Got the Band Sanitizer? And with an animated COVID virus playing a synthesizer, and it was noisy and really kind of lo-fi video and really stupid, and right up our alley. And so we pitched the idea of doing a video for the title track of our Owls record from 2020, and he did a brilliantly stupid job of that, and we've gone back to him a second time, and we'll be going to the well at least one more time with a song of his choice off of our next record.
And that next record?
That next record is tentatively scheduled, tentatively entitled Peaches and Herbicide.
I like it. I like that.
Thank you. And it's currently in the mixing process. We recorded it over Labor Day weekend down in Bryan with a guy named Wonko Zuckerberg, who is the guitar player for a Bryan-based band called the Ex-Optimists. And about 2 weeks after we recorded with Wonko, they had an offer on a house in Fort Collins, Colorado accepted. And so they tore down the studio, they packed up, they moved to Colorado, and it's been a little while with them getting set back up again. So we've had some delays in the mixing, but it seems like every couple of days over the last couple of weeks, I'm getting a ping in my Google shared folder, and the mixes are getting real close. And hopefully, knock on wood, we'll have CDs ready to go by the end of May. We've got a tour coming up late May into mid-June, and the optimistic goal is that we'll have CDs ready to take on that tour, and then we'll get the record in line for vinyl, which is currently looking at about 9 to 12 months turnaround time. But we're going to be touring to some places we haven't been before, and we really want to. We're playing some of these new songs in our live sets, and we want to be able to have CDs for people, even if we don't have records for people.
Right, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's so great to see the music scene like rev up again. Like, we're getting tours, we're getting shows. I mean, Psychedelic Panther, that's kind of reviving this, reaching back out to you, is that you'll be playing at that.
Yeah, so we've got, we were invited to play the Psychedelic Panther Festival, which is coming up on the 15th, 16th, and 17th of April. Yes. In Fort Worth at Main at Southside, aka Mass. Joe Guzman of a band called Flow State is the organizer of this festival. Main at Southside are the co-hosts. There's an extensive list of local sponsors, including Radio UTD, among others. There's a website, and I can give you the URL and all of that stuff here in just a bit. Maybe we close with all of that info. But we've got art vendors, we've got food vendors, we've got, I believe, 29 bands over 3 days, indoor and outdoor stages on Friday and Saturday. I think Friday I think is only out in. Let me check here.
Yeah, I'm like, I know Saturday.
Yeah, let me come back to this. Okay. So Friday, April 15th, we've got 7 bands all on the inside stage, starting at 6 p.m. And Saturday, the 16th of April, doors open at 1, and we've got bands from 2 p.m. until 1 a.m., alternating between indoor and outdoor stages. And that's when we're playing. We're playing indoors on Saturday at 6 p.m., give or take. And then Sunday, we've also got indoor-outdoor stages. Again, doors at 1, first band at 2 p.m., and the last band takes the stage at midnight, so that'll probably wrap up again around 1 o'clock. A little late for school night, but,
yeah.
you know.
My 8:30, that would not...
Yeah, well,
Ooh.
we have a show in Denton the night before.
Okay.
Another local band called Possible. They're releasing an album, and we were asked to be part of their album release show.
Oh, that's really rad.
At Andy's. So we're gonna be like a Saturday only appearance at the Psychedelic Panther, which
that's a good lineup that day.
Yeah, but Friday has some great bands as well. We've got Space. There's a typo on the event. It's Stace Spation, not Space Station. The Gray, Flow State, and that's Joe Guzman, the organizer's band. Maestro Maya, Fantamello, Uncle Toasty, and Sunbuzzed. Saturday, Driving Slow Motion, Picnic Lightning, Apuk the Destroyer.
Yes, that's, yeah.
Radio War, and then us at 6, The Robot Bonfire, Big Heaven, Siamese Hips, Secrecies, Helium Queens, and Breathing Rainbow. And then Sunday, things don't let up at all. Sevet, Bruce Magnus, Stim Afternoon, Mono Ride, Poems in Parentheses, Estacado, Sly Fungi, Telemetry, Black Market Garden, Celestial L'Amour, and Fiction Theory closes out the weekend. And I think we've got like about almost a dozen visual artists who are scheduled to exhibit. Some podcast sponsors and other media outlets that are providing, some PR for all of this. And so we're real excited to be invited to be part of it. I feel like our band is sort of on the fringes of psychedelic. We don't necessarily identify as a psych band, but so much of our influences came up through 60s psych and 60s garage rock, and it's all gets sort of processed through this blender and comes out as us. So it was A, slightly a surprise, and B, a big honor to be asked to be part of this festival with some of the best DFW psych and psych adjacent bands.
Shout out to Joe again for organizing this.
Yeah, that's an awful lot of work, and so shout out to Joe and shout out to the crew at Maine at Southside for providing the host site and helping with logistics and all of that.
So are you planning to play some of your new upcoming tracks during that, or are you waiting for the tour, like the upcoming tour?
No, we've been playing songs off of the Peaches and Herbicide record since we started playing live again back in July. So we when the world locked down in March of 2020, we were one day away from a 9-day tour. That was our UTD spring break. And we were heading east and southeast for a 9-day run. And that Thursday, we made the decision to cancel and canceled a Friday night show in Ruston, Louisiana, and Points East. And then we watched over the course of that next week as all but 2 of the shows that we were supposed to do ended up canceling. It was sort of a domino effect, watching, local bands that we had booked to play with us deciding that they were not going to go, or venues deciding to shut down. And we ended up then live streaming. We had been live streaming from our home rehearsal space for several years before the pandemic. We would just pop onto Facebook randomly on a Sunday night and play for an hour. And we've had an ongoing virtual New Year's Eve party for, I think we just did our 6th year of that. Okay. So we continued live streaming. And then in July of 21, we made our first venture out onto a real stage in front of a live human audience. And Gorillas. We played with the Go-Gorillas at Tulips. And so they don't count quite as human. But so we've been playing these new songs from Peaches and Herbicide since we started playing again in July of 21.
Okay.
So we're not necessarily holding out on anything. I know that's bad marketing and bad PR. We're supposed to drive up interest, but I like to play them live, and we work bugs out of them, and we figure out, what's working, what's not working, and I could play them live a lot before we record them, and then we like to play them live. I'm looking at our set list, though, because I wrote a set list far in advance for this. And I won't tell you all the names of the songs because that spoils the surprise, but we're reaching way back into some very early material, like songs that we wrote in 2013. And we're going to play that. We're going to play some songs off of the 2019 Curvin Streetman Sugar Bride Blues record that you have a fresh CD right in front of
so
you.
So fresh, so clean.
And we're going to play a couple of songs off of, we'll play one song off of Owls, the 2020 record. And we're playing two songs off of Peaches and Herbicide as unreleased. And we're playing two songs that have not even been recorded yet. One of them has appeared. We've played it live last weekend. I played both of them live last weekend in Houston and Beaumont. One we've played in the DFW area before, and one will be a very new song for a DFW audience. And I'm looking like at the runtime. I mean, we probably have room to slide another song or two in here, given that we've got indoor-outdoor stages and we're ping-ponging the start times. But yeah, it should be a good set. We're digging into some material that I think is our more psych-adjacent material. Some of our stuff is very garagey, some of it is sort of punky, and I think we're going to leave some of those songs on the bench for the set at the Psychedelic Panther and see how psychedelic we can get
within that. That's gonna be a lot of sight condensed into one location.
And thinking about it, maybe we should go with a completely opposite set. But I like being able to visit that side of things. We've got a large repertoire. The Peaches and Herbicide record will be our fifth full-length album with another EP thrown in there. And most of the songs that we've been working on and recording since 2014 are still on our active playlist. So, we've got 50 or 60 songs that we can dip into for any given set. And we think about, okay, what bands are we playing with and what kind of an audience are we going to be playing with? If we play with a band that's a little bit more on the Americana rock side, we've got loud folk songs that we can play. Or if we're playing with a couple of punk bands, we've got things that can amp up the energy and fit in with that. In some ways, we're kind of chameleon-like. We've got a lot of influences and a lot of points of contact with other local bands, and a deep well of songs to pull from to make a set that we think will be fun for any given night. I mean, we don't have a set that we play over and over and over again. We've got a lot of songs that make up, pretty unique sets. Sure, it's at some point, if I were to go back through all of my set list, I could find that we have played an identical set, but it wouldn't be on purpose. It would just be sort of
the permutation at that point.
Happenstance that these are the songs that we ended up playing, and we've actually played that configuration of songs somewhere months or years prior.
And I hate to we might cut this part out, but
yeah.
Because it's bringing up COVID. It was a very changing event. And
absolutely.
With that drastic change to being fully online, fully remote, how much did that influence Peaches and Herbicide?
I had a guitar sitting next to my desk all the time, which I don't have if I'm working on campus. We weren't spending time packing up and driving to shows. We had time to think about, what was going on. We had time to revisit old material. Two of the songs on Peaches and Herbicide, I wrote them originally in 1981 or 1982, and had played versions of them in bands that I was in high school and my early college years, and the lyrics remained incredibly relevant. So added a couple of new verses to bring things up to date, kept the main riff, rearranged some musical parts to fit our lineup and our style, and I think we've done justice to some old material, finding sort of new voicings, new tunings on the guitar to write different things with. On the Owls record, the last song on the album, the second to the last song on the album, I don't know, maybe hand me the album, I'll tell you where it is. The second to the last song on the album, the last two songs are covers, and the last one is a Tom Waits cover, and the one before that is a Flipper cover. And Flipper was my favorite band in high school, and the song that we covered there's two Flipper covers on the record. We cover Love Canal on side one of the vinyl version, and we cover Sacrifice on the B-side. And Sacrifice was easier to play in an open D tuning, which is like a blues tuning, and the song doesn't sound anything bluesy. But because we'd recorded this and we were playing it in our live set when the pandemic shut down, one of the guitars that I had at home was stuck in open D tuning, and that guitar happened to be sitting by my desk. And while I'm dinking around trying to figure out how I'm going to learn to teach online, and I need a 5-minute break, I reached around, I grabbed the guitar. It was an open D tuning, and on the Peaches and Herbicide record, there's 6 or 7 songs now that are written in that tuning, which is something I hadn't used other than one song in my past 40 years of playing guitar. So it was a time for experimentation, a time to do some different writing, revisiting old material. We ended up really trying to avoid direct commentary on the pandemic and things of that nature. We've never been a particularly politically oriented band, but we do touch on some things. We're mostly an irreverent band, and probably an irrelevant band too. But we go for the low-hanging fruit and bad dad jokes and puns and stupid things like that. But we decided we needed to write. I had this compulsion to write something about the pandemic, and in between teaching online classes, I found, particularly during the early days of the pandemic and that first summer coming after, this is before we had vaccines and there was no timeline for the vaccine, and my wife and bandmate is immune compromised, and so we were really concerned about keeping her alive. And so I took a lot of naps.
Understandable. Stress
naps. And I woke up from a nap with a riff in my head, and I immediately got up and went downstairs to the guitar, and sure enough, it turned out to be an open D riff. Who would have guessed? And then I knew that the song needed to be called The New Plague, but I couldn't figure out what the words were. And every time I tried to write something, it felt like it was too heavy, and nothing was really felt like my voice or what I wanted to say. And so it sat for months and months and months, and then eventually it hit. And the song about the new plague is like a dance song. And so we changed the title to open parentheses, do the, close parentheses, new plague, exclamation point. And as a professor, I have to be pedantic about how we spell this out. On the set list, it just says new plague, but it's really do the new plague. And it ended up being this sort of funky, dancey kind of song, thinking about the plague in different ways, as a medical phenomenon and as an intellectual and cultural phenomenon. And so I'll kind of leave it at that. Since I'm wearing two hats here, I certainly try not to be political in my classroom. I want my students to think and make decisions for themselves, and support them in whichever way they decide to go, provided they've thought about it and can justify it on the grounds of sound evidence. So that's like the professor in me doing this kind of, projecting my desires onto students. Is not that I desire you to vote one way or the other, but I desire you to use intellectual skills and make an informed decision and vote according to evidence. So, Do the New Plague is probably the most overtly pandemic-related song that we have. It's currently slated as the opening track. We'll wait until we get the final mixes back on this and decide if the track order that we've been thinking about is ultimately what we're going to do. But that's the current plan.
I'm very excited for that to come out.
Well, you will be one of the first people to get digital copies of this.
Oh my gosh, Radio UTD local music exclusive.
Yeehaw!
For our listeners, for the people checking this out via transcript on our website, You mentioned doing live streams on Facebook?
Yes.
But what is that your main use of like communication for knowledge about upcoming events? And
no, actually our preferred method is our dedicated website, which has a URL that's easy to remember, pf63.net.
.net. Okay.
Yeah, so somebody else got the .com, and we're not. I don't feel like we're a commercial venue and venture. So .net is actually, I feel more comfortable with that as a band identity. So pf63.net. The homepage functions as our electronic press kit. Brief description of the band, scroll down a little bit and all the relevant social media links are there. Get to the bottom of the page, there's a music player and you can sample a half a dozen or so songs, and then a drop down menu if you're looking at it on your phone, or if you're on your computer, a banner menu with links to upcoming shows, a band history, a gig history, galleries of band art, flyers and posters from previous shows, links to the video. It's a WordPress hosted site, so we have a blog function, and so weekly or so blog posts pop up, and I think you have to scroll to the bottom of the page to get to a list of where those are. But pf63.net is sort of your one-stop place to find out information about what we're doing and what we've done, and contact information and stuff is all on there too. We've got a band email that people can reach us at.
That's wonderful. This is a question I just really want to ask. It may not be relevant, but with Peaches and Herbicide, is that like... my brain wants to go to like Silent Spring, Rachel Carlson, but also Peaches' immortality, Journey to the West. What was your inspiration? Or is it just a pun? Is it just like a fun Peaches and Cream, Peaches and Herbicide?
Well, this is where I'm showing my age, because back about 1979, you could not turn on a radio, AM or FM, in this country without being bombarded by a song called Reunited and It Feels So Good by a soul act turned disco act called Peaches and Herb.
Oh, okay.
And so Peaches and Herb were a 60s soul act who were reinvigorated by the late 70s disco movement, and they had this monster hit. And I won't scare you or the listeners by singing along, but I'm sure that you will be able to dig this up, and it won't surprise me one bit if this doesn't find its way into the bed underneath a portion of this interview, as it absolutely should. Man, more power to Peaches and Herb. But it always struck me that Peaches and Herb were probably not their real names, and that they were getting away with a couple of really dirty jokes in their stage presence, and their stage names and personas. But yeah, the Peaches of Immortality are certainly a thing. And within the Taoist tradition, that the Journey to the West, where a lot of people are familiar with this, with the idea of an immortal peach, goes back to the Han Dynasty cult of the Queen Mother of the West, and she has the garden that has the peaches of immortality, and the context and connotation there is that these fruit are not literally fruit, but this refers to the Queen Mother's sexuality. And that the peach, so today the peach emoji seems to refer to a particular body part. The Taoists refer to it as that part, as well as two other parts of the female anatomy. And so it's dirty joke from a Taoist religious context dating back to about 200 BCE. So there's all kinds of things that fell into this for us. First and foremost was sort of the pun on Peaches and Herb as a pop culture reference from my earlier days, but it also then falls into the Taoist studies side of things, and this is one of my research topics as a professor, and again, the idea that you can sometimes get away with saying really dirty things if you kind of hide them in some bit of humor. When the song comes out and you hear the final verse, there is a full-blown tip of the hat to Peaches and Herb and their big hit. But everything else is it's a love song, which we don't do a whole lot of love songs, and when we do, they do tend to be somewhat weird and offbeat and probably not safe for you can play everything but the title song of Owls on the radio. The FCC doesn't care about anything except that one.
And that is why we have the local music feature outside of, in the safe harbor hours, from until 6 a.m.
Because it's one of those things. Apparently, you can say the word ass on the radio, and you can say the word hole on the radio, but you can't say beep on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And on that light, when we recorded Peaches and Herbicide, we actually did we did a clean radio-friendly version of Owls, and we changed the unspeakable word to something else. We thought about this when we were recording the Owls record, and we were talking to our engineer at Elmwood Studios in Dallas, and at the end of the day, we're like, nobody's going to want to play this song on the radio. And then, what do we know, man? We release the record, and we send out some copies, and our label sends out some copies, and WFMU in Jersey City, New Jersey, like the great American freeform underground radio station, starts playing songs off this record. And one of the DJs contacted me and said, like, we'd love to play, the title track, but we can't because, we can't say this word on the radio. So we've recorded a safe version of that, and as soon as we get the final masters of that, that's going straight up to Bandcamp, pay what you want, free download kind of thing, and we want to get that in the hands of as many radio programmers as want to stick this earworm out onto the airwaves. But Radio UTD got this song first. We did our pseudo stereo session here, and Jonathan did the oversaw the session and did the video editing, I believe, and that's up on your YouTube page.
It is. It's one of our more experimental videos, but we just did one with Estacado a month or two ago.
Okay.
So that'll be releasing any day now.
Oh, good. I'm
looking up to the fest as well.
I'm looking forward to that. So Radio UTD got the scoop on an official release of that song, and we'll send you some stuff as soon as we've got masters and are ready to roll on this. But Peaches and Herbicide's weird. It's like it's in a blues tuning, and it's the only song that we played that sounds like it's a blues song, and it's a love song, but it's not completely normal, but it's not completely obscene. The funniest thing is we off of our first record, we have a song called Arkansas Bride, and it's about a honeymoon road trip. And it starts, it opens with one of the great rock and roll cliches, rolling down the highway. And the first verse ends with panties on the dashboard, and the song ends with a line that says, "The safe word is taco, she whispered in my ear." And it's like full of dirty innuendo. And ESPN licensed the song for a food and travel show on the SEC Southeast Conference Network. And if anyone from ESPN is listening, you still owe me $1,000 for those licensing fees. But I'm still cracking up at the idea that this particular little dirty song got broadcast into the living rooms of millions of unsuspecting sport ball fans across the American South. But we were really thrilled that the producers of the show liked the song and wanted to include it. And again, like the little kid in me is just giddy over the subversiveness of being able to
that's so fun.
Stick something like that into living rooms of places like my dad, who could care less about any of this other stuff. But if it's all football, then now you've got Arkansas Bride on the brain.
That's beautiful. And with that, thank you so much for coming in here today and taking the time.
Hey, thanks for having me in, and hopefully we'll see people out at the Psychedelic Panther Festival. We've got a couple of dates between now and then, but you should just look at our website to get those, because I'm really here to promote the Psychedelic Panther Festival. April 15, 16, and 17, Main at Southside in Fort Worth. Festivities start off, I think, at 5 p.m. on Friday and 2 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. We play Saturday the 16th at 6 p.m. on the indoor stage. We'll have the food vendors, art vendors, bands will be there with merch, and so if you're interested and curious about what it is we're doing, come check it out, and we can send you home with CDs and with records. And if you've got a refrigerator, I've got a magnet. If you've got keys, I've got a motel keychain. If you have a torso, I have a T-shirt. We've got all kinds of paraphernalia that we're happy to send you home with. And we'll do those transactions off campus to avoid any sort of conflict of interest appearance. So thanks again for having me. It's been a pleasure to be back here at Radio UTD this afternoon.